Squad, what's up, family? Cheers. Today I got some organic pink coconut water mixed with watermelon juice. So cheers. This stuff isn't cheap, but my goodness, worth it. Especially when you decide that your health is worth investing into. Because you see, there's people that pay that much money for a Starbucks drink and don't think twice about it. People that'll pay $15, $20 for a cocktail, not think twice, go out to dinner, drop a couple hundred, like whatever. Then people tell me, you're fancy spending $11 on juice. Yeah, but see, I don't pay for that other stuff. That's the thing. I don't waste money on that other crap, so I have money for stuff like this. In any case, let's get into the topic before I start rambling too much. I want to talk to you guys, a man talking to men, and if you're a female, you're perfectly welcome here to the discussion. I think you'll very much appreciate what's going down. But this is really me as a man speaking to my fellow men right now, and what I want to talk about is our feelings. Let's talk about our feelings, shall we, fellas? And I want to talk about a little bit about what I was talking about in the video that I dropped this morning. So, told you guys, those of y'all that subscribe and watch all my videos, first of all, love you guys. It's a beautiful experience to be tapped into a community like this, and just to know that there's so many of us, really. I mean, we're rare, but we're out here. We're out here. So, all right. I mentioned a little bit about, we were talking about this female attraction stuff. I told you guys that I took a hiatus from making these videos for a while because basically I was out in the field gathering data, having experiences, some serious rough patches, man. I went through some very gnarly attacks, very, very difficult situations. I myself fell short of my own standards for myself in certain ways. On certain days. So I had to kind of come back to center. I realized I was kind of getting a little willy-nilly when it came to my spiritual life. And I was getting a little lost in the sauce, as it were. And the sauce in this case being my job. We have multiple jobs, but one of my jobs in particular started really just sucking the life out of me. In a way that I'm quitting the job. I'm quitting the damn job. The money was very good. I was making bank there. But you know, like with this stuff, like it's not. Your health is more important. Your health is your wealth. All right. What does it matter? If you're sick, what does it matter? And speaking of sick, that's one thing I went through too recently. I went through a day where I kind of been fighting this thing, and finally it just. You know, my body said, all right, lay your ass down for a whole day. And for me, that's extremely difficult to do, especially on SR. But it was a very powerful learning experience, man. And I've gotten to a point where I just kind of like whatever life is throwing at me, I've learned to lean in and not look at anything necessarily as an accident, but as an opportunity. So yeah, we do get attacked. But I want to reframe this stuff. And this is kind of the point of the video and what I want to get at as far as the feminine and our relationship to the feminine as men. That's why I started off as a man speaking to other men. And I want to talk to our relationship. I want to speak on our relationship to the feminine. And I want to go kind of deep on this. And the reason I feel compelled to speak on this is because I follow a lot of other semen retention oriented channels, and, you know, no FAP type of stuff. You know, there's like an Instagram channel, like no FAP Club, I think it is, whatever. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this community that for me is like, it's like almost it, but it's not it. And it's to the point where I feel like I need to speak up. There's a bit of, sometimes I feel like overzealousness when it comes to this masculine power. So part of what happens naturally when we retain our life force energy as men, when we refrain from ejaculating, and especially when we refrain from even lusting after women entirely, when we get to a level where we've actually got self-mastery going on, and we can consciously decide that that's just not something we're going to engage in, and we actually have that power. And over time, our power levels increase. Our masculine power. Masculinity is a very projective power, right? Our genitals go out. We put stuff out of them into the feminine. So the masculine puts out, the feminine receives, right? Masculine has this kind of like fiery nature to it. Femininity has a more fluid, water-like nature, okay? But women also have some fire, and men also have some fluid. We're all a mixture. So one thing I've noticed is, like, let me just take a guy like Andrew Tate, for example. I would assume you guys know who this guy is. He would be a perfect example for me of somebody who has taken this thing to such an extreme that he's actually doing damage to himself and to those around him. Like, I'm calling him out right now. Andrew Tate, I'm calling you out. Andrew Fake. Andrew Toxic Masculinity AF. Toxic AF. I want to say the F word real bad, but I'm not going to do it because this is YouTube. And here's what I mean, man. This guy is not demonstrating any level of respect or reverence for the feminine. And I see this happening. You know, he's become kind of like a role model. Like, a lot of men look up to him and think that's cool. And they do this kind of, the pendulum swings so far in the other direction, they come to the realization that they've been a simp on some level. And they're like, you know what, screw that. No more simping. I'm a man now. I'm gonna retain my seed. I have this masculine energy. And then that can sort of like develop into this like egotistical, very, very like toxic, toxic masculine thing. It's like, you're doing this spiritual practice, but look, what are you turning into? What are the fruits, man? And the way he speaks about women, it's not okay, dude. It's not okay. There's definitely a value in us getting to a point in our lives as men where we can easily say no to women, where no single woman is ever more important than you and your mission, right? So the way I look at it is like God number one, me number two. And that's kind of a weird way to say it, because those two things, it's like my relationship with God, that's number one. My relationship with God is number one. Everything else comes after that. And it's like, after that comes my immediate family. In my case, my mother, very important to me. And my boys, my spiritual family, very important to me, right? And so after all of that would come a woman that I might feel some way about, if you feel me. So that's not to say that she's anything other than divine and deserving of my full reverence, right? And this is the issue I see. It's like a lot of men, it gets to the point where it's like, oh no, they're all crazy type of thing. You know what I mean? It's like the male version of the women that are like, oh, they're all assholes, they're all the same, they only want one thing. That's not true. We're not all the same, and we don't all just want that one thing. I'm evidence of that, and I think you are too, right? So the same goes in reverse. The women, they're not all the same, right? And a lot of them are messed up. Why? Because they've been hurt by men, right? And so they're traumatized. They're human beings just like we are. I don't resonate with this idea that they're the weaker vessel, right? And a lot of this comes from scripture, but I think a lot of it has been misinterpreted, misworded along the way. Weaker physically, perhaps, yeah, that's why in the Olympics, the men and the women don't compete against each other. At least they didn't used to, you know what I mean? There's a reason for that, because that would be unfair, right? Because men have stronger muscles. We have more testosterone, so we can build more muscles and lift heavier stuff. It's just, that's all there is to it. That, in my opinion, that's the only way men are stronger than women. That's the only way. But the scales are even here because there are ways in which women are stronger than we are because of their fluidity, because of their emotional nature. And in order for a woman to be balanced and healthy, she has to be in touch with her masculine side, and in a way where she's not resenting the masculine. She loves the masculine. She appreciates the masculine. She respects the masculine, not just in you, but in her too, because she's got a bit of that fire herself. And she understands that she has to implement a bit of structure into her life, being that she is the more fluid of the genders. She's got to have a little bit of structure in her life to balance that out, or else she'll be an emotionally driven woman, which is not something any of us need to be dealing with. So the same goes for us, though. We can't be emotionally driven men, or now we're acting feminine, and that's where we came from. That's what we're leaving. That's the exodus we're making on this semen retention journey, right? We're leaving that emotionally driven, lust-driven way of being and stepping into something much more ordered and disciplined and masculine and structured. But if we take that to the extent that we say, oh, to hell with women, right? They're just there to distract you. They're just there to take your energy. That kind of mentality. That's what I want to call out, because I just fully disagree with that on every level. I think there is a beautiful and perfect design that God created here, where men and women are like reflections of one another, and we help each other understand each other, and we help balance each other out. The issue is that on a deep level, we all know this is the case, and the problem is a lot of us are misinformed. We have weird notions around romance and relationships and all of these things, and so as men, we become simps when we rely on the woman to ground our masculine energy, because now we're dependent on an external. That's codependency. That's addiction. It's really, at that point, she's a drug to you, not a person. And a woman on an intuitive level is going to know that's what's going on, and she's not going to like that. And eventually, she's either gonna dive straight into the codependency with you, and you guys are going to trauma bond and have a terrible time, or she's going to get her SHIT together, and she's going to tell you to kick rocks at some point, because she doesn't want to be treated like an object. And good, that's how it should be. She should not want to be treated like an object. So we as men, we really do need to look to the feminine for some wisdom and guidance at times, but not necessarily in the external. So if you have a female in your life, especially if there's some sense of romantic interest there or whatever, you're getting attention from females, whatever. What I feel, my role in this to play is to be very self-aware of everything that's going on. How am I being triggered by this experience? What's this bringing up for me? Is this bringing up insecurity? Is this bringing up resentment towards past relationships? Is this bringing up some notions I have about generalizing about females? This is all stuff I need to look at, because really none of it's an accident, and whatever's going on is going on to teach you something. So I'm learning as I go. Women come into our lives for a reason at certain times. And a lot of us, you see, we might be craving for some kind of relationship, some kind of intimacy with the feminine, or if you're a woman, with the masculine, right? You might be craving for this because on some level, you don't feel like you have everything that you need. Why would you crave something that you don't already have? You see what I'm saying? So the craving comes from a sense that you don't already have it. But the craving is also a natural inclination to achieve balance. And it's a natural inclination to engage in relationship with the opposite sex. But see, people have it all twisted. They get straight into the bed, into the bedroom. They skip all of these necessary steps. And a relationship, the reason, see, I think we actually end up getting what we want in life, whether we know it or not. We're co-creating reality, right? And so we get what we want on a level, whether we even know it. This is why we have to be conscious of ourselves, so we can see that the stuff that's coming into our lives is stuff that we're inviting, actually, or blocking. Because if you're not ready to take a very serious, deep look at yourself and see all of your shadows as a man and your insecurities and the areas where maybe you are overconfident because you're compensating for an insecurity, but you're afraid to admit that to yourself or to somebody else, right? This is the kind of stuff that the presence of a woman can spotlight for you. And it's not something to be shunned or pushed aside. It's something to be revered. And this does not mean that we jump into bed. It's the exact opposite. This is why we don't jump into bed with women. We learn from each other in this very conscious way. So if you don't have a relationship in your life and you want one, I'm telling you, it's because you don't actually want one. That's why. Because the deep, deep knowing part of you understands that if you were to engage as a conscious man with a conscious woman, that's going to bring up stuff. It will. For both parties, it will bring stuff up that you've been avoiding and suppressing. It's going to bubble it up to the surface and you're going to be forced to deal with it. So until you become somebody who is more than willing to look at this stuff, to experience it, to feel it, to acknowledge it, to be accountable, until you're at that place, the right woman is not going to show up in your life. You're not going to attract a conscious woman because a conscious woman's going to spotlight all of that stuff. And until you're ready for that, it ain't going to happen. And as soon as you are ready for that, that's when it might happen. And the paradox is, for me, it's like when I'm ready for that is when I literally don't feel like I need it. Is when I've figured out that I am also feminine. I'm not just masculine. And as I become more and more masculine through this cultivation practice, I have no choice but to also dive deeper into my femininity, to the part of myself that feels and receives information. So in a weird way, like I said in this other video, it's almost like I'm penetrating myself now. I'm not expelling this stuff out. I am penetrating myself. It's almost like I'm making love to myself in a non-sexual way. My masculine is entering my feminine. And in that becomes this sort of balance that makes you a very potent individual on a bioenergetic level when these things come into balance. So last thing I want to say here is that our job as individuals is first to cultivate that balance within ourselves, and then to become ready and willing to see more and more of our shadow and to acknowledge it, accept it, embrace it, give it love, give it nurturing, hold yourself accountable. When you get to this level, this is now when you're ready for a conscious woman to enter your life. And when she does, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And that's the point. That's good. If it's hard, that's good, right? That means the potential for learning and evolution is that much higher. The harder it is, the higher the potential for evolution. Same way in the gym, when the heavier the weight I lift, the more my muscles grow, right? This stuff isn't supposed to be easy, but it is perfect. It's divine. It's ordered. And so I think that's all I got to say. Respect and revere the feminine just as much as the masculine. They're equally important. We can't have one without the other. All right? So, if you're still with me, man, you're a real one. I love you guys. I'm going to keep the content going because I've learned a lot over these past couple of months. And I'm still learning. And I'm going to keep bringing forth the truth the best way that I can. So, with that, signing out.